moment.
Governor Charlie Crist convinced two other members of the state clemency board to pardon the iconic rock star who had many ties to the Bay Area. Clearwater High School claims rocker Jim Morrison is a famous alum. He met his sweetheart, Mary Warblue, at Clearwater Beach in 1962 and attended St. Petersburg Junior College.
We regret to inform you that we are unable to accept your application.
He appears here in a public service announcement for Florida State University, a school he attended for 2.5 years. Within a decade, he'd be dead.
You know the day destroys the night.
With The Doors, Jim Morrison gained a cult following and commercial success with his counterculture image. It wasn't until just after the fateful concert in Miami in 1969 that he was accused of exposing himself to the audience.
It's a complete travesty of justice.
Morrison's widow, novelist Patricia Keneally Morrison, believes her late husband would be indifferent to the pardon.
I think he would reject this completely out of hand. He would just say, no thanks. I can't be bothered.
But the charge bothered a lot of his fans, though Morrison didn't do much to help his own case with comments like this.
Well, in the realm of art and theater, I do think that there should be complete freedom for the artist and performer.
Charlie Crist felt strongly enough about the case to make pardoning Morrison one of the final acts of his governorship. But Morrison's widow believes pardoning a crime that never happened is just a political stunt.
If the conviction could be expunged, I would be happier about it.
I'm sympathetic and understand, I believe, what she is trying to communicate. What I do know is that if someone hasn't committed a crime, that should be recognized.
Oh, you and I.
Well, the home of Morrison's grandparents in Clearwater, where he spent so much of his youth, was torn down for a condo project years ago. The doors, though, were salvaged and painted with psychedelic artwork. You can find some of them for sale still on the internet.
Very cool detail. An injured manatee flew from Tampa to Puerto Rico today. McDill.
Today, you might call Jim Morrison a rock and roll legend. And along with the music came Morrison's unpredictable on-stage antics. At a 1969 Miami concert, the frontman allegedly unzipped his pants and spouted profanities. A jury convicted Morrison of indecent exposure, but he died before he could appeal.
All in favor, please say aye.
Well, today the State Clemency Board voted unanimously to grant Morrison a pardon. The case has become a personal crusade for Governor Charlie Crist.
In this case, the guilt or innocence is in God's hands, not ours.
All Mr. Morrison ever did is do drugs and sing songs.
Plenty of Morrison fans have waited for this day for a long time, but not Angel Lago. He's a retired Miami police sergeant who says he's friends with the officer who testified against and ultimately helped convict Morrison.
The governor is quoted as saying that he doesn't believe the act happened. If he believes that, that means the arresting officer lied under oath, perjured himself on the charging document and in his testimony. And I know that man. That man is an honorable man.
Beyond the questions about whether Morrison actually did what he was convicted of on that night, there may be a bigger issue here. Is it worth Tallahassee's time and effort to pardon a rocker who's been dead for nearly 40 years? The governor calls it a way of proving the state is capable of compassion.
My general response is that anytime you might have the opportunity to pursue justice, it's not a waste of anyone's time.
As Morrison liked to sing, the time to hesitate is through. At least today, it's a message that's been well received. In Tallahassee, Troy Kinsey, Bay News 9.
Thank you, Troy. Well, Crist has been lobbied to grant Morrison a pardon for more than 3 years now. The governor says he's a big fan of the Doors' song, Light My Fire. And like Morrison, Crist attended college at Florida State.
Style, he got sideways with the law more than once, including his 1969 arrest in Miami on charges of indecent exposure and public intoxication. But tonight, that part of this legend has been forgiven. Our report from NBC's Mark Potter.
With a song that would become a rock and roll classic, Jim Morrison and the Doors exploded onto the music scene in the mid-1960s. They sold millions of albums around the world, but also found trouble with the law. As dramatized in the Oliver Stone movie The Doors, a drunken Morrison shouted obscenities during a 1969 concert in Miami and threatened to expose himself on stage. While it's been argued for decades whether he actually did that, Miami officials filed charges 4 days after the concert.
We have taken out 2 warrants for Jim Morrison. One of them is for indecent exposure.
John Dinsmore, the Doors drummer, denies Morrison exposed himself and claims he was a political target in the Vietnam War era.
The whole country was polarized, kind of like today. It was for the war or against the war. Getting Jim kind of would put a dent in that movement, and that's what was going on.
Jim was a nice guy.
Robert Josephsberg, one of Morrison's attorneys, says there were conflicting accounts and no pictures of the alleged incident.
If the police had seen him publicly exposing himself, there should have and would have been an arrest, and no one arrested him.
There should be complete freedom for the artist and performer.
At trial, though, Morrison was convicted and sentenced to 6 months in jail, which he never served. A year later, while free on appeal, he died in Paris at the age of 27.
I respectfully ask my colleagues today to pardon Jim Morrison.
Today, 4 decades later, the Florida Clemency Board, led by Governor Charlie Crist, pardoned Morrison, finally clearing one of the biggest names in rock history. Mark Potter, NBC News, Miami.
We learned today Johnson & Johnson has recalled